What's going on, you bunch of heathens? Today we are checking out Into the Fire by Sabaton. This is the Vietnam song, I believe. I have no idea what it's about, but I can't wait to check it out and learn about it. We're doing a history section as well, as always. Links are down below. Go check them out. And yeah, let's jump in. Ooh, slow intro. I like that. A slow intro into the... Ooh, I like that. That's very reminiscent of songs that you would hear put to like a Vietnam War movie or whatnot.
Sent from home, old season into the unknown. Battery landed in the jungle, sent on first patrol. Sun down, darkness falls, digging for the night. Ambushed in the dawn, they came, the jungle's alive. I fail, my fire starts to burn, the heat controlling my mind, the soul. A savage running wild, within me the beast starts to roar. Now I'm ready to strike. A creature of the night, into the fire.
Dude, this shit sounds so fucking good. Like, the fact that you can see the progression of the story unfolding before you is mwah, lovely. And honestly, probably underappreciated. I'm a glaze so good. Ooh. I like that. Sarge is down. I'm in charge. Ordered an airstrike. Basically, broken arrow. He was basically a broken arrow. Like, nah, fuck. This has all gone to shit. Airstrike us. It's hitting everyone.
It's driving me insane. It's burning us all, this fight. No man will live to tell. Within me, my blood starts to boil. Now ready to strike. A creature of the night. Into the fire. The flame of napalm strike.
God, an early Chinook. Ooh. This solo is very reminiscent. Honestly, that's so very reminiscent of the solo from Carry On by Avenged Sevenfold. Is the like vibe I'm getting from it. Ooh, I like how, like, kind of muted the fucking thing is.
Now I'm ready to strike. The creature of the night, into the fire. The flame of napalm strike.
A good song. I mean, I didn't really speak much about it because there's, I mean, it just sounds like, I don't know exactly what, like, this sounds like a fairly deep, standard thing that would happen during Vietnam, so I don't know if it's about a specific fight or whatnot. So I can't really speak on it. I mean, yeah, it sounds like Vietnam, honestly. It could be about the entire fucking Vietnam War for all I know. Can't wait to get into the history of it. It was a good song, though. I really enjoy it. All right, let's hop into the history.
You guys have written about very many different wars, you know?
Ooh, sponsored by World of Tanks.
And you know, the Shirayama and the 30 Years' War and the Great Northern War. But you only have one song that's actually about Vietnam.
Yeah, Into the Fire.
Maybe it's a bit too recent. I'm sorry, what was that fucking footage?
Into the Fire.
Sparks near his fucking head. Scary as shit.
It was the height of the Cold War. While the United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in what was maybe the deadliest staring contest in human history, the
Yeah,
real wars were
don't
being
flinch.
fought on the periphery of the blocks of power. The communist doctrine of national liberation was gaining traction in post-colonial Southeast Asia, and the U.S. government was fearful that a domino effect might push more countries into the communist sphere. U.S. involvement in Vietnam began in 1961, as Soviet and U.S. ideology split that country into two camps. The communist North began waging an armed insurgency against the Republican South. Despite President John F. Kennedy's promise to win the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese population, he also went straight to sending in special forces to train the South Vietnamese army. The insurgency became more and more violent, and American forces were dragged into a military conflict that gradually evolved into full-on war. A war that grew ever uglier. For the U.S. and its allies, warfare in the past had been straightforward and pretty linear. The engagements in the Second World War, fighting in Europe and the Pacific, and soon after that in Korea, had presented them with fixed lines and coherent battlefields. They took pride in the statement that they could fight any enemy anywhere in the world. The war in Vietnam, however,
Vietnam
was to be
changed
the
that.
place where many of the traditional tactical approaches to war stopped working.
Mhm.
It is often
And honestly, I'd say Vietnam is a big proponent of changing how wars are fought today. Honestly.
portrayed as the prime example of guerrilla warfare because of North Vietnam's heavy reliance on the irregular forces of the Viet Cong, the National Liberation Front. The Viet Cong's aim was to subvert the South by controlling the rural population, often through brutal terror tactics. They wore no uniforms, nor did they have standardized equipment, and instead preferred ambushes and traps to conventional warfare. The Western coalition faced an enemy.
Yeah, no, I've seen very hard to tell friend from foe, civilian from foe in this scenario, but I've seen some including even during the World War II Pacific War. But specifically when it came to this, I forget what it was. It was a Vietnam museum, I want to say, and seeing some of the what would you call it? Traps, like demonstrations on some of the traps that they had was fucking insane.
That seemingly had no headquarters, who did not even try to compete with them for superiority in the air or at sea, an enemy that deliberately chose to remain elusive, who would not stand and fight, but shoot at them from afar and then run. While the U.S. could conduct devastating bombing runs deep into the north of Vietnam, their true enemy controlled the terrain beneath the treetops via a large network of tunnels, or he fled into sanctuaries in neighboring Laos and Cambodia. It was clear
Fucking tunnels
the Western
again.
forces could not just stay in their bases and bomb their enemies from the air. They would have to conduct aggressive combat operations themselves to destroy the enemy forces, disrupt his logistics, and break his power over the rural population.
Some interesting footage. Quite a bit of that footage I haven't actually seen before. Of like on the ground shit footage, like the dude sitting on the turret. Haven't actually seen that footage before. That's interesting.
The supporting Australian forces already followed an especially aggressive doctrine.
Oh, that's right. I forgot Australia was in Vietnam with us. I believe France was for a time at least, because wasn't France. I don't want to sound stupid. I mean, I usually do, but I don't want to sound stupid. Oh, no, this was beforehand. Conflict where France fought to retain its colonial control over Indochina. Okay. So no, before this then.
Of nearly non-stop patrolling to control and dominate the countryside around their base camps, and the U.S. troops followed suit. The nation's countryside, however, was a whole different matter.
God, just
From
fucking carrying a
open rice
guitar
paddies
on
to tree-covered
patrol.
ridges to the
Insane.
winding valleys of the mountainous regions in the south, the terrain of Vietnam was quite difficult to navigate. The plateaus of the Central Highlands are way different from the marshes of the Mekong Delta, but it was the jungle that really defined combat in Vietnam more than anything. There, it came down to individual platoons.
The trees speak
scouring the thick and
Vietnamese.
hostile jungle, trying to establish control over the enemy. Inside the jungle, it was often eerily quiet. If not for the noise of helicopters flying overhead or maybe from distant artillery shells, there was very little noise. So
God, that'd be
movement
so...
would be reduced to a minimum, as every moving leaf or cracking twig could warn the enemy of their presence.
Yeah,
With
that would be so fucking eerie.
poor visibility, men could sometimes only see 2 or 3 men in front of them. In dense terrain, the platoons split up in even smaller groups. They moved slowly, covering each other. Trails were nearly invisible, overgrown with vines and brush. Every step, they had to carefully scan their surroundings, looking for moving vegetation or color that did not belong. There was this constant need for vigilance, as light and shadow could easily play tricks on their minds. In the thick, layered vegetation,
Yeah, you had
the
to be
best thing
really
for the enemy
careful.
was to camouflage its position and lay an ambush. Being unwary for just a moment, letting your guard down just once, could be a fatal mistake. Of course, as I said, they were not only moving through jungle. The platoons could start out quickly, moving over dry ground, then suddenly find themselves crawling through an area of thick bamboo. Then they would maybe traverse the rushing waters of a stream or march through an exposed field of rice paddies. Then,
Yeah, the Vietnam is when you hear Vietnam, you usually think jungle and whatnot. But Vietnam is deceptively ecologically diverse when you think about it.
forcing through
At least that's what I found looking like seeing and learning more about it. Because I know when I was younger, I always thought Vietnam jungle, but no, it was fairly diverse.
high elephant grass, and all of this in just 1 or 2 hours of marching. Since
Yeah, that's
the terrain
insane.
was so diverse, it was impossible to calculate how long a unit would be busting brush to reach its destination. Daily stress from the constant need to remain alert was exhausting, and the few hours of sleep each night, in combination with guard duty, wore the men down quickly. Water was often scarce and rations insufficient, and moving through the jungle was also draining. Temperatures changed from extreme to extreme depending on the season. Either it was too hot and too humid, or it was too wet once the monsoon season had set in. Heat exhaustion and dehydration were
God, that sounds
common
like ass.
among inexperienced soldiers, while mosquitoes, leeches, and snakes
God, mosquitoes, so malaria is a big issue. Leeches just sound annoying and painful. Snakes, snake bite, painful again. You got all the, just from all the disease there, like we learned in the Pacific, just disease would be rampant as well.
menaced them during the steady downpour in the swamps and marshes.
Or trench foot as
Malaria,
well.
fever, dysentery, and diarrhea, and even trench foot were all daily
called it.
dangers outside of combat. It was not surprising that the paranoia and the stress were often relieved with drugs. As
Yeah,
for
not
what
a
they
surprise at
carried
all.
with them, since the men were out in the field for several days on end, they had to carry enough supplies and ammunition to keep them going. But resupply was often difficult and could only be done by helicopter, so everything had to be as light as possible, which is a bit of a balancing act. The Vietnam War changed the deployment of weapons as well. The standardization of automatic rifles like the M16A1, was a confidence booster, especially in surprise engagements in the jungle, but it also led to a higher demand for ammunition. Actually, ammunition had priority over everything else. Jungle firefights were regularly lost by the side that ran out of bullets first. Bazookas and mortars were usually not carried into the dense jungle since they were too heavy and unwieldy. Once the sun was close to setting, the men had to stay close together in the pitch black jungle.
Also, sorry, I'm trying to fix my tracking. Also, I know for a fact, like, look at the, what was it, the M42 Duster and stuff like that was used quite a bit in, what would you call it? In roles that they weren't originally specified for a lot of the time. It'd be something along the lines of like, oh, what am I trying to think? Like anti-aircraft guns would be just used for what would you call it? I don't know. I lost my train of thought trying to fix my tracking and shit. Overall, a lot of tactics used.
It was very easy to lose each other, and navigating the vegetation at night was pretty much impossible. Instead, they would stop and rest, and after it got dark, quickly change position once more. Sleeping was only possible for a handful of hours, as they had to constantly guard themselves and prepare their own ambushes throughout the night. And if the patrol survived the night and finally reached its destination, maybe a village or another populated area, it would investigate for Viet Cong activity. Vietnamese interpreters accompanying the platoon would question the civilians, trying to get an accurate assessment of the situation. But trust was hard to come by. A village was full of ordinary people, fishermen, woodcutters, farmers. It was impossible to say if the Viet Cong already had a grip on the local population.
Yeah, you had no idea.
Were they sympathizers or just poor folk who minded their own business?
Yep, and then that's when you start getting into war crimes of soldiers and just crimes in general committed against the standard populace.
Did they hide weapons or make booby traps? Also, the Viet Cong often pressed villagers into service as lookouts who would alert them of the platoon's presence. Then the Viet Cong would prepare their ambushes. It was not unusual to suddenly encounter the enemy on the trip back the same way they had come. Once spotting an enemy, the silence was broken at once. The point man would open fire, usually setting off a whole magazine in the enemy direction before backing up. The men behind would throw grenades or smoke bombs as the cry,
was that the
"Guns up,"
177?
resonated through the ranks. Grenade launchers and M60 machine guns moved up to suppress the enemy, while the fighting would move to the critical flanks. It was vital to bring the maximum possible amount of firepower onto the enemy's position. If they were caught in the enemy's kill zone, that was a death sentence. They often fired blind. If they were lucky, they got fleeting glimpses of their enemies, but even at close range, the vegetation could easily hide a whole platoon. Streams of fire, highlighted by tracer rounds, ripped through the vegetation from the belt-fed machine.
It was just basically, it was spray and pray. You shoot and hope to God you fucking either hit them or scare them away, because you're more than likely not going to fucking see them.
Grenades like the M67 baseball were pretty much impossible to spot and throw back in the dense vegetation. Once the enemy had too much and sought to break off the engagement, the platoon would leapfrog onward, trying to keep the enemy from slipping away.
That's why, honestly, just due to the vegetation, that's why air support was such a big thing during the war. Like, what was a Remy video where he talks about certain things with the for Arma 3. I want to say it was Remy anyway. And he talks about Sog Prairie Fire, where he goes into like a mini documentary about certain things that, oh, why is it like this? Where, like, say, the Cobra, for example, it would have flechette rounds that would detonate on the canopy of the trees and flechette rounds would tear through the canopy to hit targets, but they'd have red phosphorus smoke rounds in there so they could see what they were aiming at. And also the standard napalm, haha, Vietnam napalm, funny word, that kind of shit, is because that was the most effective shit they had.
Immediately, the radio men would establish contact with base, relaying their position to call for support. If they were lucky, attack helicopters and bombers would swoop in.
Oh, that's cool. I've never seen that before. Putting down a smoke screen, that was cool.
Napalm bombs were what was most feared.
Yeah, the shit would fucking stay to you.
Napalm is like a more vicious form of a flamethrower, a mixture of gasoline and a thickening agent like lye. It's a highly incendiary and sticky liquid that once aflames clings to clothing or skin like burning glue.
Yeah, what? Let me check something first to make sure it's not something bad. Is it this? I want to say in one of the nicknames is Jungle Jelly. Do not quote me on that. I honestly do not know. I would assume so, but I'm not positive.
Causing gruesome burns, and since it's a fluid, it can also flood into bunkers and tunnels. Where the napalm bombs were dropped, the jungle was immediately set aflame. It burned friend and foe alike, catching both civilians and combatants.
Man, I didn't care who
Not
the fuck it
only
was.
did it burn everything it came in contact with, its violent reaction with oxygen also means it sucked all the air out of its victims' lungs, killing them with sheer pressure. The heat,
Ooh, that's something I didn't even
asphyxiation
think
killed
about
people
as
even
well.
if they weren't hit directly. Napalm cannot be washed off and is an unforgiving, tormenting killer.
She is a cruel mistress.
Napalm became a symbol of the Vietnam War. But like the automatic weaponry, like the thousands of bullets and the tons of bombs spent on each engagement, napalm was just an attempt to catch the enemy. An enemy that did not care for instruction manuals or battle lines. Napalm symbolized the desire to kill an elusive and dangerous enemy by any means possible.
Now ready to strike. A creature of the night. Into the fire. The flame of napalm strike.
So that's interesting that this is the only song about Vietnam, and this is one of your earliest war songs, yeah?
Yeah, it's from the first album, Prima Victoria, actually.
So how did this come
Damn.
about then?
Because at this time we didn't have a clear vision of where we were going with the storytelling, which battles, which war we would cover.
Okay, makes
and
sense.
We also didn't have so much in-depth knowledge, so we would go for the ones that we know a little bit more about. Obviously, we have heard about, and the first where it all started was the Normandy with the Operation Overlord, and then it
Makes
went
sense.
on with a
Didn't
couple
know
of
exactly
others,
where it
and
was. Yeah,
obviously
okay.
The war in Vietnam, and
Well, when I was a kid, it was still going on. You know, I was born in the 60s, so even in the early 70s, the first like 7-8 years of my life, there was a war going on.
God, Indy, you're old as shit.
Not for me.
Sorry.
Younger than you.
Young
but,
guys. Yeah.
But we were seeing a lot of it. We were growing up with the movies about it because there was plenty
God,
of
the
them
movies,
made, and,
yes.
also with some music about it. I remember one of my
Honestly, music, I mean, what is it? Clearance. Fuck. I feel bad. Creedence Clearwater Revival, CDR or CCR. What the fuck is the song? It's their most fucking known song. I'm trying to remember what it was. Fortunate Son. Ah, I don't know why I couldn't remember what the fuck it was called. That one. Movie wise, my favorite Vietnam movie, God, what's the fucking Mel Gibson's movie? Great. I've been Googling a lot. Vietnam movie. We Were Soldiers. We Were Soldiers. Great fucking movie. Love that movie.
Favorite songs about from one of my favorite bands, Gravedigger. They have a song called Heart of Darkness, which is
Sure, the Joseph Conrad book that Apocalypse Now, the movie, was based on.
We kind of had this little idea when we were writing the lyrics for it, like because there's the a creature of the night, into the fire, now I'm ready to fight. These things, they represent some guy with a lot of anger and
plenty of that.
And then the fire with the napalm.
With the napalm.
Makes sense.
It makes me think more, instead of Apocalypse Now, more of The Deer Hunter with Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken. And Christopher Walken's guy, when he snaps and, plays Russian roulette again and again, and he keeps winning, and it's, you can see just.
It's another movie I haven't seen, but I know
you can see in his eyes that it's heavy, and
Oh yeah, I know. I've heard it's a good movie and like popular and whatnot.
They made a lot of movies. Well, not a lot. They made a bunch of movies that were dark about Apocalypse Now and The Deer Hunter. One thing they didn't do is, as far as I know, is have a comedy series about people in Vietnam. And the reason I say that is
Tropic Thunder. I mean, kind of not set during the Vietnam War, but I mean, Tropic Thunder.
because from the Korean War, you have MASH, which is a comedy, although it does follow the war. And for World War II, there's Hogan's Heroes, which is,
Tropic Thunder. I mean, it's not a series, I guess, but
like 20, and it's happy-go-lucky people like Colonel Klink and Sergeant Schultz. They're like goofy Germans, and it's 20 years after World War II. And the same thing with MASH. That was in the 1970s, but we never had. I don't think there was a happy-go-lucky Vietnam thing.
I don't know, but
instantly my mind went Tropic Thunder. MASH. It was, but the thing with MASH is, I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but I've heard it's like that it's a mixture of comedy and like a real like, oh, this is shit's dark. No one mentioned Tropic Thunder.
I guess because of all the negativity it created in America, nobody dared to touch it. Maybe because
probably
because it wasn't like a win.
Obviously, World War II created a very
my thoughts on that
emotions in America.
Ending, so and Korea, even though that was never fully resolved, that was still more than that. And the napalm thing too, I really like that you got that, because that is for me an enduring symbol of Vietnam, because that was always, you'd see pictures on, my dad be watching the news and I'd be walking by as a kid on TV and it was napalm. That's
napalm's one of the biggest things of the war.
They used to spray DDT in our neighborhood when I was a kid. You'd have to go inside because there'd be clouds of DDT sprayed in that's poison.
I don't know. I've heard of God, what was it? Of kids just running through that. Like, what DDT is that? Like the mosquito bullshit? I've heard stories of kids just running through it.
Don't do that anymore.
No, for a good reason.
All right. Well,
yeah, pretty good reason.
Into the fire, and that is it for today from us.
Thank you for watching the Sabaton History channel.
Love Sabaton History. Good video. Loved it. Always
Listen
do.
to me, everybody. We love the Sabaton History channel. If you do it, please share it with us.
Love it. Love you guys. Make sure you guys go check them out. They're linked below, as always. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, you guys take care of yourselves. See ya.